Many entrepreneurs struggle when they first start out to capture the balance between growth and profitability in their newfound businesses. Many of those same entrepreneurs pour their hard-earned cash into their own ventures only to find that they aren't growing quickly enough to sustain their business, or they're growing so quickly that they're running out of resources fast. Well, our guest today has been in exactly the same situation, and he's going to give you the tips, tricks, and tools to sustaining a healthy growth that will not only keep you in business, but expand your profits. Stay tuned. Part 1 of today's interview is coming at you.
Welcome to this edition of Peak Performers Podcast with your host, Thor Conklin. Thor will be sharing the necessary tools, strategies, and psychology you'll need to become a peak performer in any area of your life or business.
Thor Conklin here. We give you the tricks, the tips, the tools, the strategy, the technology, and the psychology peak performers use in order to get more done and execute at the highest level. If you know what to do but struggle with getting it all done, or simply want to raise your game to the next level, this podcast is for you. Sit back and enjoy.
Today's guest is Kevin MAKO, founder of MAKO Invent, the US's first company to offer product development and Canada's largest consumer industrial design firm. Kevin specializes in developing consumer invention ideas into successful and powerful businesses. If you need help developing and producing you or your business's creation, then keep it locked. Kevin is going to give you all the information you need to know to do just that.
Welcome to another episode of Peak Performers Podcast. We have a very interesting guest, and a matter of fact, we were just talking before we started to record, and we found out that we're in the same organization. So, Kevin, thanks a lot for joining us today. A member of Entrepreneur's organization, love the organization, been a member for the last 8 years. And we were talking a little bit that you went through the Accelerator program. Explain to the listeners what that is.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited about being on this show. I really appreciated you guys reaching out, and looking forward to help out with some little entrepreneurial tidbits of my journey along the way over the last 10 plus years. EOA, the Accelerator program, I did that fairly soon after I started the business. It's a pretty cool program that basically helps companies reach their first kind of million in annual sales. And there's just a great amount of kind of mentorship and guidance and programs surrounding that in I think most cities around the world, most major cities anyways, that really help companies that have a little bit of an establishment to kind of take them through to the to the next level and scale up their business model.
Yeah, it starts at $250,000 in revenue, and the whole idea is to get you up to $1 million. And you're surrounded by entrepreneurs that are there to mentor you. I mean, it's an amazing program. I think it's like $2,000 or something to join. It is really, really reasonable with the amount of value that you get out of it.
Well, yeah, and you get to go to many of the larger EO events and things as well.
And hang out with cool people like us.
It's definitely a fantastic value and a really interesting program, because it's not only the other people in your peer groups that you're working with who are all going through very similar problems that you are, but it's also all the mentorship from and I found, especially I was part of the Toronto chapter, and I've done a little bit of stuff with Austin as well. But in Toronto, there were so many folks from EO that wanted to volunteer and help. Us as I remember back in the day as kind of the small folks rise up and figure out our game and learn from the mistakes that they made along the way.
Yeah, it's a really, really tight-knit community. If I was in Toronto right now and I just looked in the directory and I'm like, hey, I'm in Toronto, I'm in jail, I need somebody to bail me out, I guarantee there'd be about 15 people that would show up at the jail to bail you out. Am I lying? I mean, it's really that kind of a close community. It's really interesting.
No, it's great. I hope that doesn't happen, but yeah, it's very tight-knit, that's for sure. Always welcoming for other EO members from all over the world, really.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the reasons I don't carry a bail bond. I just know no matter where I am, I've got to have an EO buddy somewhere in the in that jurisdiction.
Yeah. No, it's great.
I've never been arrested, Mom. Okay, you can relax right now. Hey, Kevin, I want to talk a little bit about you created this company. You were in the third year of college, or were you in grad school when you created the company?
Yeah, I was in university at the Richard Ivey School of Business at Western in Canada, and I'd actually been building this starting in high school, but just as a sole proprietorship amongst other businesses. I very much took the spaghetti slinger approach in my younger days to basically say, let me try a bunch of things and see, throw a bunch of stuff against the wall and see what sticks.
Yeah.
And this was the business. We were more in kind of like sourcing essentially cheap stuff out of China. So I was bugging people to say, all right, you're a restaurant, you're buying this, or you're a promotions company, you're buying pop-up display stands, or this clothing company, they're buying tons of these generic golf shirts. And I basically said, hey, let me try and find them for cheaper. If I can, sling me a percentage or something like that. And that's how it got started. It started with my first box of collared shirts in high school. Worked my way up, doing bigger and bigger deals, but really in a part-time basis. And then in third year of university, I incorporated the business when it was getting a bit more serious, and then I went on to study actually in Hong Kong. After I graduated business school, I did a semester basically in Hong Kong. Doing supply chain management and working with factories and consulting for manufacturing from there. So that was kind of the beginning of this until we moved more into the new product development space, simply because we were getting a ton of requests from people saying, hey, I've got this idea. It's a little bit different than that thing that you're sourcing. Can you do a modification or a change? And that was the birth of the design company that is MAKO Design and Invent today.
Fascinating. And you know what I love about this is you started the company in 1999. And just this year or last year, however you want to look at it, you made the Inc. 5000. You had a growth rate of 322%. 16 revenues were 2.1 million. I mean, really interesting how people think that they come out of a gate, right? They form an idea, they come out of the gate, instantly, right? We're going to get traction, and this thing's going to be off to the moon, right? That's the way we all think, right? But reality is, you just got to keep going and going and going. I mean, hats off to you, man. I mean, here you are, 17th year of business, 16th year of business, and you're grinding it out, man, and you're having tremendous growth right now. What changed?
I appreciate it. No, thanks. The funny thing, a very unique aspect of this business is that I have grown it completely organically without any funding, investors, business partners, debt, none of that. This has purely been growth through acquisition of clients. Which is there's tremendous pros and cons to that. Scalability is one of them, and I would say that's a con because you are limited by the amount of money that you have coming into your bank account. You also have to be very very careful because when the money runs out, it's over. So
right.
There's no such thing as dipping deeper into the investment pool or whatever else. We've never had to lay anybody off. We've never had to scale back. We've always grown every year because I've taken a very different business approach to most young folks starting up, and with that certainly some challenges along the way.
What's interesting is, we're profitability consultants, so we're always thinking about the bottom line. As you're growing, yeah, right? And what happens with a lot of entrepreneurs, right? A lot of entrepreneurs are like, hey, give me the growth. They're addicted to the growth. And it's like, okay, great. Was there a shift in your philosophy of, okay, I want to grow? Obviously, you didn't get the growth that you got just by not making it a priority. You obviously made that growth a priority.
For sure.
How do you manage and make sure that as you're growing, because sometimes it's easy to grow yourself right out of business, right? Yep. With cash flow and everything else. How do you balance the growth and the profitability? Because I'm always screaming about the profitability. Of course, all the entrepreneurs are screaming about the growth. How do you marry the two?
For sure. No, growth is obviously it's, and especially when you look at apps and software, it's all about user acquisition and all that sort of fun stuff that it is great and valuable in maybe a highly funded industry. But for most businesses, including especially my own, cash is king.
Yeah.
And I think part of the reason that we have grown so much is that we've been very careful and strategic and efficient with our spending, not just our efforts in growing. I've always taken a two-pronged approach to developing this business. One is growth, and of course, it's looking at all sorts of new avenues in order to grow our client base and all of that. But I prioritize that equally with growing our service offering. And what I mean by that is pretty much on a weekly basis, we are improving the efficiency and effectiveness, the quality, the deliverables, the client satisfaction, you name it. We're always trying to look at an equal balance between growth and your offering. And because that we put so much, let's call it investment into the quality of our work, every year trying to get better design work, more efficient, quicker timelines, better pricing, better partnerships, better manufacturing partnerships, patent partnerships, all these sorts of things, essentially working aggressively every year to build the tools that we're able to offer to our clients so that their invention ideas can as efficient and effectively go from, sketch on a napkin to store shelves, which is also our motto. I think that, now that the business is maturing, 10 years plus since we've incorporated and that I was on this full time after school, really, I don't think that we would have grown nearly as quickly as we would have, especially in the later years into these years, if we hadn't spent so much time, which at the time is very much an investment into the future of our service offering. And that's why, we do. I do a bunch of guest speaking, and even Google for Work, for instance. We were the first company that they wrote about as kind of leading, small to mid-sized business in terms of how to use cloud computing and cloud software to support to support the growth of a small business. If we hadn't invested in those things early on, there's no way we would have been able to sustain this heavy growth in the later years, because so much of that comes from the quality of work in which you produce.
And I'll apologize ahead of time for this next question. If you answered it there, great. If not, I just want to dig a little bit deeper.
Sure.
The growth engine took off and started to hum. What was the change, the action, the moment, the shift, whatever it was? What do you attribute that growth curve to?
Well, to get more into the details of the growth and particularly the quality of service behind it, you'll find I'm a huge advocate for using technology to run a business. There's so many, whether it's productivity tools, or whether it's customer relationship management tools or project management tools. There's so many things out there. We're in a really amazing time because we can, if you learn the tools of the trade to both run, manage, and execute on a business, as well as all the reporting that comes into it, there's so many advantages to the efficiency of your work. You can essentially, I'm a big believer that if you get really good at using the top tier tools of the trade as of today, that you can essentially take a 10-hour workday and double that.
So you got more
time is finite. The amount of work that you get done in that time is not. Even something simple like you will look at task tracking software. Rike, as an example, is one that we use for that. That allows me to not only fill in the list of tasks that company priorities I'm working on, project priorities I'm working on, client priorities. It allows me to organize them by the due dates, by the priority that I've assigned to particular tasks, by the amount of time I think that it'll take. I can have dependencies with other staff or other stakeholders within the organization. All of those sorts of tools which allow me to be incredibly effective at executing a wide variety of entrepreneurial tasks on a daily basis. So I'm a huge advocate for building those tools. The tough part about those is that they are an investment, and that's how you need to look at them. it's not, most people when they get told about a new piece of software or some new thing that will help them become more efficient at their work, they're very hesitant. They're worried about the disruption of workflow and all of these other things that go along with it, let alone the cost. But I look at all of those as an opportunity. Every time I see a new piece of software across my desk, I get really interested to understand it and maybe even beta trial it and really figure out, understanding that, yes, it might take me some time and certainly hours of inefficiency in order to learn it, but that will save me hundreds, if not thousands of hours into the future. And I think that's a big one to being able to scale a business effectively without losing, or in fact, even better, while you gain service quality and improvements throughout that process of growth.
So it sounds like the pipeline was there. You were able to move everybody through the pipeline more efficiently, and that is really what catapulted the success and the growth. Did I hear that correctly?
Oh yeah, you've got it. And underlying that is obviously the tools of the trade of today that weren't around 10 years ago or even 10 years before that. But high level, just looking down, it's focusing on essentially processes. Right? Processes equal freedom for an entrepreneur. The more things that you can document and transfer off of your plate as a business owner will help you work on the business as opposed to in the business, which is long-term investments to much larger growth. Putting out a small fire is a certain use of time, which has a certain return. But if you spend that, pass that on to somebody and you've built processes in the system to handle that, with other people within your organization or in other methods or outsourcing, those tasks, it allows you essentially to focus on the things that are going to provide significantly bigger return on investment for every minute that you put into those things. Using infrastructure essentially to build processes so you have refined and refinable pipeline. And not only that, but you extract a whole bunch of data from that once you are having these things in place. Because the more things that you process, put into processes, the better that you're able to understand what works and what doesn't, and get accurate feedback to be able to modify and adapt and improve those things as they go on.
Thank you so much for listening today. I really do appreciate your time, and I hope you found today's show valuable. If you would like to receive these shows automatically to your phone or to your computer, simply go to iTunes and subscribe. After listening to several of the shows, if you're so inclined, please leave us a 5-star rating, as this helps us reach additional people and spread the message. If you're truly committed to taking your life to the next level and doing whatever it takes to become a peak performer, but something's holding you back, something is blocking your way, and you just can't seem to figure out what it is, send me an email to info@thorconklin.com. And I'd be more than happy to get on the phone with you. We'll schedule a 15-minute discovery call. No obligation, no cost. I absolutely love to hear from the listeners. And if there's something I can do to help, I'd be more than happy to do that. Also, if you found something of great interest in today's show and you want to share that with your friends and family, simply go to my Facebook page, Thor Conklin. Click on the episode, hit the share button, and share it on your page. You can follow me at Twitter @Thor Conklin. The website is thorconklin.com. We're constantly adding new free resources, discussing additional tricks, tips, tools, and strategies on how to be a peak performer. Remember, I try to keep these episodes short so you can listen to them during dot time, doing other things, commuting, driving, walking, working out. Decide to be a peak performer in all that you do. And until tomorrow, have an absolutely amazing day.
Be on the lookout for part 2 of our conversation with Kevin, where he tells us why analyzing data, not just collecting it, is the key to your business's success, in addition to why you should never take equity in your clients' creations. I'll see you guys on another edition of Peak Performers Podcast.